So, ladies and gentlemen, we are so excited to have James Burt in our Global Women community because, as I said, I have been really waiting for long to find a free day in his diary because he's really busy. He's a multiple iTunes top 50 podcasters, by the way, a certified performance coach, and having launched 100 plus podcasts for clients, not only for himself. This is what I like. When I hear people make their success first, and then they help other people achieve the same. That's why today he's one of the top, I would say the top influencers in the clubhouse, because he doesn't have only a good voice for radio, but he has absolutely galactic knowledge. And you are going to tap into that knowledge today. You have a great community of empowered women entrepreneurs from all over the world. And we are all ready to start learning about branding. But before we give you the stage, I would like to ask you a few questions. We're talking behind the scenes that you are a father of two, and you are all the time engaging in the clubhouse, in all social media platforms, creating products, creating positive impact, being so active. Where do you find the time? Where do you find the energy? And how can we learn to do the same? Because I face the same question all the time, over and over again, from women say, hey, I'm so busy. I have kids, I have work, I have this, I have that. How do we channel that energy to build like an amazing brand and build what you have created for yourself?
I think it starts with the fact that I love what I do, and not to be like get old Google quote on everybody here, but when you love what you do, it doesn't feel like work. So I get up every day with the excitement to do what I do. Now, don't get me wrong. I've got two small children who wake up anything between like 4:30 and 5 o'clock in the morning. So I don't get up and I'm like, oh, let's skip into the day. Because, no one likes waking up at 4:30 in the morning with a screaming baby. But I absolutely love what I do. But I guess with the marketing side of things, and I'm glad that you sort of picked up on that, because I do work hard at being omnipresent. But I see every single thing as content. And that's one of the things that we'll talk about today. And I repurpose stuff everywhere. So what I write in an article becomes a mailer. What becomes a mailer, I've got a show on a station called Podcast Radio. So I do a little summary of it for Podcast Radio. I'll then turn it into a podcast. I'll then turn that into posts or quote graphics or videograms. I'll use it for live feeds. So actually, when people are like, oh my God, how did you come up with so much content? It's just like one thing that happens, which I can ultimately repurpose across 5 to 15 different platforms. We talked offline that I'm selling a house at the moment, and the sales just fallen through today. Now, rather than me getting annoyed, which I did, by the way, and rather than just throwing my toys out the pram, which I did with the agent.
Well, you're telling us that you are a normal human being. That's a good side.
So there's actually content in that though, because how I reacted, I really annoyed with myself because I was quite rude to the agent because of how he picked up the phone to me. I was like, actually, there's a lesson in that. So I can either go, oh, someone's not buying my house. I can go, do you know what? I thought this was going to happen, but rather than proactively get in front of the issue that I could perceive was going to happen, I didn't. And then I turn around and the agent phones me up, and then I lose my rag. I'm rude. Then I'm annoyed at myself for being rude. So there's a whole lesson in that. So I've turned back.
How does that impact your branding?
Well, that's it. The whole thing, I think it depends on the brand that you want to define, because, I'm real and honest and transparent. I'm funny and moody and I just keep it really, really congruent.
And authentic.
What you see, and authentic, what you see is what you get. I say what I mean and I mean what I say. So I'm more than happy to say I'm not perfect. I'm more than happy to say, hey, I've got this stuff right today and I've got this stuff wrong. I've built, some quite successful, and, success is all relative, but I've built some quite successful businesses and brands, and I've learned some lessons along the way. And where I've got the most traction, where I always get the most traction, is when you're just being authentically real to you. And people can buy into that then. So, for example, people see, I live in a nice house. I'm married to my best friend. She's, the love of my life. I've got two beautiful children. I've got nice stuff. I have a nice life. But equally, I think if I try to just always have that veneer of perfection, I don't think people buy into that. So the fact that you're losing a house sale or losing your rag or whatever it may be, I think that authenticity is so key. And tonight, one of the things that we will talk about is how you define the brand that you want to build. It's got to be based on your genuine value.
You're saying that it's very important that you be real, you be authentic, and you don't be afraid to show your emotions, because we thought that only women express these emotions. Women are emotional. So are you saying that instead of hiding and suppressing only because we want to keep that good appearance in front of other people, still is part of our branding. So is it better if we express our feelings and emotions and then we just embrace what is happening in that particular moment?
It completely depends on the brand that you want to build. So for example, I noticed that someone had like a fashion brand. So for example, a fashion brand wouldn't come out and go, oh my God, we've had a nightmare with our suppliers. The stock's gone sideways and the shipping, the landing tax is twice what we thought it was going to be and our profit margins are being squeezed. You wouldn't put that out. So it depends on the brand that you're trying to build. But my brand is built on truth, honesty, transparency, congruency, and having a laugh. If it's not
okay,
fun,
and how would you define the brand? What is a brand? Because different people define it in different ways, and people think that the brand is just a logo, a color. So you're saying the brand is you. Brand is much more than that, yeah?
Yeah, we're going to cover this off. This is actually I'm going to reveal what a brand is in the keynote presentation. So I can't tell you now, but I will. Okay. Your brand is your reputation. And that's the whole thing about brand. I've worked with Nando's, Nissan, BMW, Nintendo, Xbox, Stella Artois, the Diageo Group, Uncle Ben's Rice, Mars, some of the biggest brands on the planet. I've also helped a lot of small scale independent SMEs and sole traders, coaches, mentors, experts to go from a standing start to their sort of version of success. And it depends on the way that you build a brand is the same whether it's the world's biggest brand or the world's smallest brand. Because it's based on your reputation, what you want that reputation to stand for.
Where is the difference between the personal brand and building a brand?
So it depends on what you're building a brand for. One of the day one of coaching school is almost what they call outcome thinking. So as much time as you can be at effect rather than at cause. So you are driving forwards the outcomes of your life, the more beneficial somebody's life will be fundamentally. And the same with your brand and your business. What is the outcome that you're creating? The thing is, again, I mentioned it, your brand is your reputation. It's much faster to build a personal brand because it's your personal reputation. It's much more difficult and much more long-term to build a business brand, but you can use your personal brand to accelerate your business brand. So for example, I run a podcast agency. You mentioned in the intro, we've done 139 podcast launches, I think it is, as of last week. Got another 2 going out next week. And we've got an amazing reputation within the marketplace, but people really don't come to work with the Ultimate Podcast Group. They come to work with me because of my reputation. But I use my credibility and I lend it to that brand so that eventually Ultimate Podcast Group does become the powerful brand that people come to. Because I'd love to have people coming to work with Ultimate Podcast Group, but they don't. They're searching for me and my name, which is why they come to me. So I need to use my credibility, leverage it and lend it effectively to my business brand. And then eventually I can step away from that business and it's a saleable asset, because if the business is solely built around you, then you're never going to be able to significantly scale and then exit that business, because you're always going to be the key man or the key woman within that enterprise.
Wow, yeah, that's so important, because sometimes we know they help each other. Your persona is helping the brand, and the brand then starts helping you to grow more. So one more question, and then we'll go to the presentation. What it takes to build a personal brand, in terms of, apart from putting your authority, your credibility, do people need to take some actions, like to do, like, I don't know, to get more visibility, or to publish a book, or, I mean, apart from being you and being authentic, what else people need to know? Let's say they are beginners, they want to build a brand, but they don't know where to start. What would be something, because this 10 minutes presentation, Q&A that we're doing together, I want to release for more people who probably want to come deep into your presentation.
Yeah, so the first thing actually starts before you do anything. It starts with understanding what reputation you're trying to create and why. Now, I'm not talking about, what's your why? As in, like, I want to make loads of money so I can give back to, an orphanage in Africa. That I'm not talking about that kind of why. But what's the, let's break it down and make it a bit more tactical. What's the point? What's the point in you building a brand? What's the point in you actually doing it? Until you understand that, then there's no point moving any further forwards. Because, if you run 1,000,000 miles an hour in the wrong direction, all you've done is end up 1,000,000 miles away from where you need to be. So fundamental, before you start doing anything, you need to understand what you're trying to be. people want to, be, do, and have more, but they get it the wrong way around. They're like, oh, no, just do more, just do more, just do more. I see it all the time. I coach a lot of people on getting their brand right. And I had someone, I did a presentation on Friday, and this woman came on, and she's like, well, I'm doing this, I'm doing that, I'm doing paid for, I'm doing blah, 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 I'm doing organic, I'm doing podcasts, I'm doing LinkedIn, blah, 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 blah. I just let her talk and talk and talk and talk. She's getting more and more wound up as she's talking. I was like, she went, it's not converting, no one resonates with the message, nobody gets it. I think the information's too high level for people.
I'm already overwhelmed just listening this.
Exactly that. And I said to her, do you know what the fundamental problem is? You're saying the wrong thing to the wrong audience. And she went, what do you mean? I said, you're talking tactics and tools. You're focusing on the input, what you're doing for people, not the output, what's in it for them. I said, you're completely missing the point. You're saying about me. This is what I do, this is what I do, this is what I do. I said, I've gone through your feed. I can't see one post. It's about the outcome you deliver for people. Spin it on its head. What do you do? I don't care about the input. I don't care, if you're a coach or she was a mindset strategist or however she framed it. I was like, I don't care whether you use yoga, breath work, transcendental meditation, past life regression, or a wet fish slapping me around the face to get me to where I want to go. I care about where I'm going. So tell me that, talk to me about that. So but understand why you're building this brand, and then everything else falls into it after that. They say often that, you've got to focus on message, market, media. And it's in that order: message, market, media. What are you trying to say? Who are you trying to say it to? How are you going to say it to them? So many people get it the wrong way around, and they're like, oh, do Facebook, do Twitter, do Instagram. Oh, I'm going to do a TikTok video. Hilarious dancing. I'm like, why are you doing it for? And they don't know that because they don't know the market, and they definitely don't know what their message is. So that's lesson number one.
Wow, this is like powerful. Absolutely. If you get these 3 MMM, that's it. So just before we go, you really triggered me to ask you something else now, because the thing that I face most of the time with women, they stay a lot in the zone of thinking. They are thinking about it. They really take so much time to move to the zone of doing. So you just mentioned that this lady was doing. That's great. But what happens if people are really stuck and they never start doing something?
Well, I always break it down to people, and I keep it really simple. I always say to this: listen, if you do what you've always done, you will get what you've always got. If you do what you've always done, you will get what you've always got. And thinking, plotting, planning is fantastic, but it's like a rocking chair. It gives you something to do, but it doesn't get you anywhere. So put it in that way, and that's sometimes a nice way to put it. And also thinking, planning, plotting is just glorified procrastination, because it's nice to live in that place, isn't it? Because until you pull the trigger, you actually do the stuff, you're never stepping out of that zone of comfort. I might be the best branding expert on the planet. I'm not saying that I am. I'm also not saying that I'm not. But I might be the best person on the planet. But until I step out of my zone of comfort, until I stand in front of 30 of you guys tonight and test the waters, I don't really know. I've got a great hypothesis. I've got 15 years worth of acumen that I've learned. I've read 1,000,001 books on marketing, branding, PR, blah, blah, blah. But until I step out and do something, then nothing's going to change. And normally by telling people that, it kind of makes them go, oh, okay.
Wow, yes, absolutely. If you want something that you never had before, you have to do something that you never have done before. That is the message that James is sharing.